Tonight, I would hope not, but actually you could slide those this way because we're supposed to get like 5 inches of rain Saturday.
Yeah.
I may need it. All right, we are live there, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon. This is a regular meeting of the Bangor Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, September 14th. As usual, we'll do our introductions to begin, and I will begin going to my right. I am Ryan Robbins. I'm a committee member and the chair.
Tracy Willett, Director. Rob Jarvis, Head Golf Professional.
Debbie Chandra, Assistant Director.
Michaela Pelkey, committee member.
Andrea Oldenburg, committee member.
And I'm here right on time. Yeah.
Kim Boucher, committee member.
And then we have one in the hall that's coming in.
Leah McBriarty on her way in.
Yeah.
We will not wait for her. Let's first on the agenda is the approval of the August minutes. We'll have a motion to accept. Second. Without objection, we approve. Now we have committee member Leah McBriarty coming in late.
Wow.
Wow.
But
Jen,
probably
mark
field
that
hockey
down.
practice. Like,
Probably feel like.
Yeah.
So I have a whiplash. Don't make me do it.
First item on the agenda is a progress update on the Cascade Park design.
So I will like briefly introduce Regina Leonard from Ars Leonard and Associates. She's the consultant that we have contracted with for the Cascade Park design, redesign, and landscape plan. Regina, I'm going to hand it off to you, and I believe you should be able to share screen. Let me see if I have to give that permission to you. You should be able to do that from there.
Great.
Why don't you go ahead and give it a try? Looks like you are. Perfect. Yahtzee.
See, sorry. It always cuts off for some reason, the slideshow. There we go. So thank you. I wanted to start off tonight just by talking about the overall project and to give you just some of the background of things that we've been working on. So the stated project goals in the RFP is to really plan for a more resilient, low maintenance landscape over time, but also to deal with some of the issues, especially around the grotto waterfall and the center fountain. There's definitely some issues that we'll talk about. And then to look at how to kind of specify some park elements within the park to kind of create a more cohesive landscape, and then to coordinate with working groups like yourselves to get input. And the ultimate product is a final design where we can help guide implementation with some reliable cost estimates so that you can budget over time for these improvements. The specific project needs, sorry. Hold on one sec, if you don't mind.
Oh.
Yep, I'm just sorry. I was presenting the wrong plan. Okay, hold on. I wondered, it seemed off. Hold on. Okay. So, so the overall process and schedule for our work is to start with the assessment of existing conditions, and we're working on that to date. So today I'm going to give you just a little summary of what we've been finding and some of the things that we have to do. So the things that we're looking at are really the background of the park, how has it evolved over history since it was first built, what are the conditions of the existing site now? Are they original to the park, or were they redeveloped as part of the park projects that have happened since it was initially constructed? What are the utilities? What are some of the issues and needs? So those are the things that we've been working on that I'll go over with you. And then the next step is really looking at conceptual design. And we'll develop alternatives based on a couple of different approaches that I'll talk about later in the presentation. We'll pull together opinions of cost and the final design concept that will provide you with the budget and phasing like I was talking about. The assessment findings, the specific findings to date, really just a summary is, and you're probably aware of this, the fountain and the park utilities have some infrastructure condition, safety and maintenance issues. And so we've identified those. We've identified some of the issues around water lines, resulting in some water loss, particularly at the Grotto waterfalls. And some of the code issues around the electrical and the mechanicals are in the pit. And then also the pool currently just has some recurring issues that need to be resolved, like algal blooms, some aging components that we need to look at. So those are some of the issues around the utilities and the fountain infrastructure. Stormwater is a huge issue on the site, and especially this summer, the fountain vault has been flooded for the past month or so. So it makes the fountain at that time inoperable, and there poses a safety issue. There's also some issues with runoff, creating sediment in some of the pathways, and erosion on slopes that need to get addressed. The landscape, we have overgrown vegetation that has been added over time, and now it's really encroaching on the paths, obscuring some views. And some of the site features have degraded over time, or features have been added over time. And so we want to identify those things as well. And interesting thing is, in the foreground of this photo that you're looking at, that's one of the original benches for the park. When the park was first installed. So some of the things that we've started talking about around the scope of work and the cost of construction is, when we look at the design approach, we have certain considerations. Obviously, you can take sort of a light approach to the repairs and make repairs as needed, or we can get into a little more complexity and look at what some of the potential issues are and resolve those. And those considerations have different levels of complexity and cost. And so when we put together a design approach, we're going to try to have a couple of alternatives, one that maybe is a little less complexity, and one that might be a more of a total reconstruction. And then other considerations that, as we were looking at the history of the park, some of the issues that kind of come to the forefront are vandalism. So there's just ongoing vandalism. It's always been the case in the park. So things that we need to be thinking about when we develop a design approach is, how to deter vandalism, how to create things that are not going to be prone to vandalism, so that you protect your investment. The other thing is, there's a history of repairs. They're cyclical, but generally what's happened over time is you'll repair it and then just kind of do just typical seasonal maintenance. And then there's a need for more investment, every 20 years or so. So we'll give you just an overview of that cyclical thing. But what we're hoping the master plan can do is sort of guide you through those in a more, so you can get out in front of it easier. So you don't come to a place where the park is again in disrepair and you haven't set aside the funds to keep it going and to keep those maintenance tasks going. The other thing is, when talking with staff, there's the maintenance requirements of the current system are very high. So that adds cost and time every single year. So we want to look at that and how to reduce that. And then finally, the historic integrity of the park. We want to make sure that we in the master plan really protect the integrity of the park so that in the future, if you want to seek landmark status, that the plan is supportive of that. So does anyone have any questions about sort of what the goals are or anything you'd like to add to some of the assessment observations so far?
Just for the group, Regina, I need to check real quick. The reason the fountain is not running now, in case you get asked, is because the pit, the vault that Regina referenced is still full of water and the pumps can't run. And we cannot enter the vault until the water recedes. Staff has tried on a daily basis to pump the water out. It keeps refilling. So we're trying to determine why that's the case. It's unusual. And the standing water you see on the lawn closest to State Street is new. We haven't had it stay that long like that before. So we've got some issues going on that are recent.
Yeah, and
Go ahead,
part of our work is to really, it's ongoing, is to identify what may be the causes of some of those issues if things have changed and to resolve those in our design. So are there any other comments, or I have a quick historic overview for you. We dug up, we went through the Bangor Daily News press articles, we've been through the town reports, and we've started compiling information. We've been able to compile a fairly good history, and this will be helpful when we try to start making decisions about features in the park. So the park name, as you all know, now most people call it Cascade Park, but that wasn't always the case. Back when the park was being designed, it was referenced as State Street Park and Waterworks Park. And then back shortly after the construction, the city council adopted the name Grotto Cascade Park. And it was called Grotto Cascade Park for about 55 years. And then shortly around the redevelopment that was happening in the 80s, the park started to be shortened and called Cascade Park. And that appears to be kind of done in the news. And then when the committee to save the park was formed, they called it Cascade Park. And I think it stuck. So Cascade Park was constructed in 1934. It was designed by city manager James Wallace, talented guy, and Daniel Webster was a resident engineer. This was done during the Depression, and so a lot of the labor that went into this, some 45,000 hours, was funded through the New Deal, the Civil Works Administration, which basically put unemployed people to work on federally funded projects, and this was one of them. Another of the federally funded projects at the time was the Meadowbrook Sewer Project, and the majority of the stone, some 400 cubic yards of it, that went into making the sidewalls of the grotto and the stone walls around the pool were from that sewer project, so local stone. And then the trees, a lot of the trees that were original to the park were transplanted from the woods. So some 400 trees initially went into the park, most of it on the slope. And we all know the history of the park with the automated fountains and the colorful lighting effects that still exist today. Here's a picture of the park shortly after its construction. This is in 1934. You could see those benches that I pointed out in the foreground. And you just get an idea of how clear the site was. You have some mature elm, and you can see the Grotto Falls up in the background. Here's just a close-up of the falls and the Cascades. I think the thing to note with this is that it was a real natural effect. It was a naturalized landscape, which was the intention for this at the time. So back in the 60s, you start to see some repairs. You start to see some repairs to the pool, replacement of the pump, some of the infrastructure of the fountain itself, the spray nozzles are starting to get replaced. A lot of the replacement at this time was done in-house by city crews. New pump houses were also installed at that time, and you can see one of the pump houses in some of the photographs that I'll show you. This just back 1936. This is a National Park Services shortly after the park was built. You can see how small the vegetation is at the time and on the slope especially. Saxel Park in the background. Some of these images are not great. They were taken from the Maine Geological Survey. This is 1939. And here we are in the 50s, mid 50s. But you get a sense of the vegetation that's grown. The cabinet, the pump house that is discussed is off to the right. You can see it screened by vegetation. You can get a sense of the rock work around the fountain. And here, the one thing that's different today is you'll notice that the rocks here, they're still very naturalized, and a lot of the rocks are original to the park at this time. In 1960, the PUC, the town always had an agreement with the water district that the town gave the water district free electricity, and the water district gave the town free water. And so there was never a charge until 1960 when the town got a bill for $1,600 for a 3-month period. And this was because the PUC determined that the district could no longer give the town free water. And it was a real issue because all of a sudden the town realized how expensive it was to pay for the water for the park. And so at that time, the water district and the city entered into an agreement where the water district for $1 would rent the fountain and falls for a period of 99 years. And that was just a way to work around this PUC requirement. Here's the park in 1969. Again, you can see that what's happened here is you have the water district offices have been built here. You see the parking, this is different. 1970 was really when most people would point to the deterioration of the park started to happen. And this had to do with just lack of upkeep and maintenance. So there was a period of sort of too little investment in the park. It went into periods of closure and disrepair. You can see here, there were lots of articles about where is all the water gone. Here's a picture of it from the news. This was also the period where the code enforcement officer determined that the pools for the fountains in town were classified as swimming pools. And so they set up these overnight, these chain link fence with barbed wire tops over the Paul Bunyan pool and at Grotto Park. And these were taken down shortly thereafter. But I just thought it was a little humorous approach there. It didn't go over well with the public. So you can see here another period where the falls are not working because the pool's getting repaired. 1980, relatively similar. And then this is shortly on the image on the right, shortly after the falls, the park was rehabilitated. The Commission to Save Our Cascade Park raised funds. They raised about $160,000, and the rebuild cost $213,000, and the city paid the remainder of that cost. At that time, the gunite was placed over the rocks along the runnels, and it was a full repair and replacement of the fountain and some of the pumps. So over the years, 2000, the pool again was resealed. So you can see the upgrades and repairs happen about every 20 years. Post 2000, the electrical cabinet was brought above ground. The underground water supply up the slope was, the cast iron had started to rust, so that was replaced. So there's been investment in the park since that major rehabilitation. But again, as we stated, there's some issues that need to be addressed, and we're hoping that the master plan will do that. Here's the park in 2014. Again, you can see that, most of the original park is intact. Some of the pathways have shifted a little bit. You can see some of the vegetation kind of crowding the paths. There's no water in this image. And here's an image from 2023. So the Parks and Rec Master Plan just identified Cascade Park as, the great thing about Cascade Park is the uniqueness of the park. It's still very popular. The uniqueness has been largely preserved. The grotto's still there, the cascade's still there, the fountain, all of those remain functional today, except for the flooding that Tracy just mentioned. The department has recently renovated the parking lot. There's nice amenities in the park. They might not be cohesive, but there's nice amenities that really contribute to the public enjoying the park, and it remains a popular place today. So it has a lot of really great things going for it. It has a lot of historic integrity left. And with that, I just wanted to identify the next steps. The next step in our process to really wrap up our assessment. We're getting some more technical information now. We're going to continue to plug in some gaps in our historic overview. And then we'll prepare some design alternatives where we'll look at different ways to approach the rehabilitation of the park. And then we'll identify a magnitude of cost. And then after that, we'll sort of refine a preliminary concept for review. So that's essentially sort of where we're at with the project and what our next steps are. Are there any questions or comments?
As Regina said, that's kind of where we're at. Before we went much further, wanted to make sure we reviewed it with you all. We have been focused on maintaining the history that's there. Probably minus the armor coating is still in the pool. That's literally bed liner of a truck that's lasted 23 years. We did that project back in 2000, but certainly as you have seen through Regina's synopsis of the history, many of the elements, many of the features are the same as they were back in 1934, which 24 is going to be the 90th year of that park. It's kind of crazy to think about that when you think about it. She referenced real quick, and some of you may remember the engineer's house effort. There was a move at one point to move what was referred to as the engineer's house at the old waterworks across the street into Cascade Park. As you can see going down Main Street, you can see how that ended. So you can see how that ended. But anyway, I want to make sure you all had a chance to share your thoughts or questions of Regina before we go much further. And if not, certainly we can keep going with kind of the plan that she has outlined for the next steps. If I miss anything, Deb?
What was the reference to how that ended?
It's still there where it sits.
Okay.
So if you go down State Street, you may not know, there's a red, is it still there? Yeah, it's still there. It's still there. There's a red house that is referred to as the engineer's house, where the engineer of the dam that used to be there lived and worked and ran what used to be called the waterworks. And a number of years ago, there was a suggestion, effort, plan to physically move that house from where it is now into Cascade Park. And as Regina referenced, the cost of it, and would the structure actually make it across the street, where would it go in the park? And it just, at that point, it just kind of stayed where it is. And that's
Is it
where,
being used for anything currently?
that's my knowledge. I think.
Was it, I'm,
I
I
know
think
The Waterworks building is still there, but I'm not sure
I'm
about
not-
the
I
engineer's
thought they
house.
moved it a
I
little
thought they
bit, put a
did
new
it.
foundation.
I think they-
Yeah, they did put, you're right. Yes, you're absolutely right. And I'm not sure if, and I'm gonna forget right here in front of y'all, who is actually managing the housing. There's housing in there now.
Yeah,
The
it's
Waterworks building.
Yeah.
a subsidiary of the Caleb Group, which is
Yeah.
out of Massachusetts.
So there's actually housing in there now, rental units in the old Waterworks building, but I'm not sure they're using the house or not. I don't know, but you're right. They did put a new foundation. over here.
I think one thing that you can explain a little more is what the pit is and what is going on in the pit and why it's so important that that needs to change.
What we refer to as the pit is actually the vault. It's an underground vault where the two large pumps are housed to run the grotto and the falls and the fountain. The cabinet that Regina referred to is the electrical piece of it, which is now above ground. The vault is all in the ground, so there are some entry procedures that we have to follow in order to enter that vault each time we go in. The pumps are large pumps that are actually lowered into the vault and then shifted to the right to be mounted on mounts inside the vault. The vault itself is 8 by 8 by probably 8-10 feet deep. So if you're ever over there, there's a silver hatch at ground level that enters into the vault. It's not an easy process. It's again, a process that we have to enter into by regulation in a certain way. There has to be somebody to monitor what's going on above the ground to ensure that the person or persons inside the vault are safe, and if they need to be evacuated, can be evacuated quickly. So yeah, it's a bit of a process to it.
And there's always problems down there. And like what's going on right now, there's water. We don't know why. And you can't pump water. There's been weddings since this has happened and they don't have water. And so it's just, it's an issue. And like Tracy was saying, our staff pump it out, and it's filling back up as fast as it is pumping out. And yes, that's new for this year, but there's always been issues every year of other reasons. So it's definitely part of the scope here that Regina is going to do is that there's newer ways that can be resolved and happen instead of it being underground.
We're gonna bring it out, yeah.
Yeah.
Just Deb alluded to, we're gonna bring the whole thing back above ground. One thing from Regina is create a smaller building in the back of the park that will have that all above ground.
might
to
that
Deb-
also have public restrooms in it?
Yes.
Yes.
Cascade is one of the only parks that we have portable facilities at. And we've been able to maintain them each year. So yes, it would be something permanent. And we've had to rebuild the pumps several times over the years because of the flooding that we both have all alluded to. So yes.
What's sort of the timeline that we are talking about in terms of like Regina doing her work and until sort of whatever work needs to be done would be completed? Do you have an idea of what that timeline looks like?
Well, we do. So Regina's work would wrap up, I think we talked about end of October, 1st of November, so that we would have, and if some of you recall, all of you recall, Regina and her team were the same consultants that we used for the master plan. So I shared that with you. She'll come back, as she's mentioned, with different phases, projects, with different levels of need and a price tag to that. The goal would be to have a report from Regina to start including in the next fiscal year budget. So it's not going to be a scenario where we have this report, boom, we're going to go start building projects. Fortunately, with our master plan, we've been able to identify some of the near-term, short-term projects and have those funded. So for example, if Regina comes back with, you really need to deal with the vault first, here's what's going to cost you. That would be something we would address first. So once that comes back, We'll have the same kind of presentation with you all. Here's what the plan came up with. Here's staff's thoughts, but certainly have the same discussion with you all when that time comes. That okay.
Thanks. So by having the water in the vault room, is that affecting, like, are the pumps in water as well?
They are in water as we speak. And that scenario is not new. We're fortunate that the pumps are able to recover from that and they can run in water for a short period of time. We also have a sump pump in the vault that runs all the time. Except it just got overwhelmed this time. And once the water gets to a certain point, then it shuts the electricity down and here we are. We just have made a lot, and I'm not sure what.
I'm not certified. I'm not trained to go in there.
Well, that's actually a good point in question.
Yeah.
We have to send staff to what's called confined space training and you'd already enter the pit of the vault. So,
Plus the pump's probably too heavy for me to carry.
and not quite something you throw over your shoulder. And
So no field trip then?
well, you can always have a field trip. I don't know how exciting it'll be this time, but you can always have a field trip.
Questions, anything?
Anything
What do you
else?
guys think?
I guess we have a problem if you can't get the water out of the pit as we get to winter.
No, and after this Saturday, it'll be a lot
Yeah.
more water. Our wedding for this Saturday, just got canceled today. They just called, which is, it's unfortunate,
Yeah.
Do we like the direction we're going with this?
I mean, it makes a whole lot of sense, like if you can have it above ground and no longer have to have specifically trained people to go under the ground,
Yeah.
that alleviates a whole lot of things. Plus, I mean, climate change is real and
Yeah.
it's probably gonna rain more.
Well, it's not just the vault too, it's the landscaping. I mean, we have been challenged with at least maintaining what landscaping there is. The AmeriCorps team we had here, however many years ago now, the last one spent most of their time over there with the grotto and the vegetation around the grotto. So just to update that, are there easier to maintain scenarios when it comes to the landscaping? So, yes, the mechanics of it
Mhm.
are a big part of that, but the other pieces as well.
Yeah.
So,
And the fountain's really low, so with any type of
Yeah.
weather, the water just sits, not discluding, the fountain, the water from that itself, but just the ground level, the where it is, it just, I don't know if it's, settled over years or something, but it's just, as anything else happens over this period, things change and it's very low. So a lot of water stays at the ground level.
turn on. Are you here for something different off the agenda or I'm going to single you all out, but more?
I'm the only one here. No, I'm just a resident of Bangor.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was here at the library, but I caught wind of the agenda and the subject I'm interested in.
Cascade?
Well, Cascade and just
Okay.
the recreation.
Well, appreciate you being here. Just want to make sure you had a chance to.
Spaces.
Okay, okay.
I
Awesome.
live on the west side.
And made all the way over here to the east side. That's good news.
She's a Bangor Muni member too, so be careful.
Oh, so she's really here to make sure you stay on.
That
track.
could be entirely true, and that would be fine.
Well, it's a good thing you're here then.
Thank you.
All right, Regina, do you have anything you want to add?
I think that's it. I really appreciate your time. I'm sorry if my presentation got a little lengthy, but I wanted to make sure that you saw the history because
Good.
that's probably
Good
what.
information.
So.
Yeah.
I just had a,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, one.
that's okay, just a silly question. As you talk about the water that sits there, you have two different things that are happening. You have the stormwater, as we have had all of this rain, but where that is really low and so close to the river, is the river still considered tidal at that point?
No.
And is there something from like groundwater underneath that is causing some of that? Is there an impact because it's so close?
With 100% certainty, and certainly Regina, I don't know what you have found out yet, when that certainly will come out if indeed it is, as they can finish up their assessment. Our suspicion, it's a stormwater issue of a current line that's inside the park. So that's where we're at, getting a camera in the lines and making sure that over time and historically, we have not had issues in the river in the park. And Treats Falls, where kind of the waterworks is, kind of serves as the head of the tide. So I don't think that's an issue, but yeah, actually, fair question.
Just thinking about the water table.
Yeah, sure.
That's-
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Great.
Thank you, Regina.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Talk to
You're
you.
more than welcome to hear the golf pros presentation, but you won't be offended if you check out.
Oh, I made him sit through mine. I should probably sit through his.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cascade Park too.
Oh, boy.
Mhm.
Take the show on the road.
Weddings, they would not appreciate that.
Oh, true. We have to do butterflies at Cascade Park.
Yeah.
Can do that
If you
too.
can find any.
Sorry, I've hijacked your meeting. Go ahead.
Oh, it's my meeting.
It's your meeting. You're the chair of this group. Your meeting.
Okay, next we have golf course update with golf pro Rob Jarvis.
Perfect, thank you. So a brief side note, after the wonderful history lesson on the park from Regina, I received a nice packet in the mail the other day from probably about 10 of your predecessors ago, Mr. Rosenberg, who was the Park and Recreation Director when the golf course was built, found an original plan, first draft of the design of the golf course and sent it to me, which was in pristine condition, other than it's been folded for 50 years, but really cool piece. We actually have a nice plaque. Rachel can testify to this. She's seen it, I'm sure, that we actually relocated from a piece of concrete basically that was in the front yard, and we had it refurbished and moved it down by the first tee and have a beautiful garden around it. And all he asked in return was A, is that plaque still around? And B, could you send me a picture of it? And Bangor values its history, so we sent him a picture. So it was a really kind of a nice, it was kind of a nice piece. So
I wonder if he, before, who's in the name now? Before Dale.
Rosenberg was his name.
Right.
James Rosenberg.
So he was before, who worked for, went to Arizona.
Oh, by the end of the meeting, drafted. Yes, that's good poll.
Thank you.
So anyways,
Super day stocks.
yeah,
Are you guys gonna digitize that?
it's as big as that screen, so I don't know how to digitize
Well, I
it.
know you guys have a scanner that can do it, probably an engineer.
Probably an engineer.
Oh, maybe they could, yeah.
I know Staples does.
Yeah, it's pretty honestly,
pretty cool.
it's
Yeah.
kind of just still folded neatly on my desk, and it'll be a nice winter project. I'd like to frame it, put it in the clubhouse somewhere as is, so very cool. I've never seen it. I've seen all the plans, and most of them are somewhere in the bowels of this building.
Yeah, right.
But that one, nobody had ever seen, including Brian Enman, so it was really cool. And it did not vary much from what was actually built, so very interesting.
So cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll start with kind of the golf course update, because I'm sure there will be questions about the other part of my presentation. As Cascade Park has been impacted by water, so have we. But all in all, it has been really a pretty wonderful season. It's easy to get bogged down with the fact that we had, 28 days of rain in June. But that doesn't get you anywhere, kind of whining about that, if you will. So we've had a lot of fun. Our tournaments have been well filled. All our outside events have not been impacted by weather to any extreme. So that's good. A lot of those folks go to a lot of air, and there's food components and sponsor components and a lot of moving parts to get those off. So thankfully, we didn't have any problems with any of those larger outside events, and our club events have all been unimpacted. Looks like Sunday might be the first one that could have some issues, but all in all, it's been a really good year. The golfers have been certainly are sick of getting their feet wet and coming in soaked some days, but I have to say they've been ardent supporters and very appreciative, very supportive of, obviously there's things that we would like to get done on the golf course. We have a slate of plans every year, and I can say that virtually none of them have been accomplished. In our airport project has, the work has been excellent. Unfortunately, it's ongoing because you can't move mud, and virtually everything that we've had to do with that end of the project, once the trees were cut in the winter, has been to move earth and shape earth, and that's hard to do when you're getting 2-3 inches of rain a week, and then it dries out and you get your skid steer out there and all of a sudden it rains on you. So we're still, obviously, we're plugging along at that, but everybody's been really understanding what's come in as far as new seedlings in some of the areas is really great. The community as a whole has been very supportive of what they've seen for the obviously it was certainly a little bit nerving to folks when we said what was going to happen, but people just overwhelming good feedback from it. So it's nice when a project that is a little scary to start turns out to be not so scary. So that's kind of the nutshell on the golf course as a whole. We're going to start our membership sale pretty soon, which will involve existing members have a period where they can renew. As you know, we have a cap of 400 memberships, and once that date expires, then it's open to anyone. With the phone calls, emails, pop-ins, I anticipate it like selling a 50-inch TV on Black Friday for $50. I think they are going to go very fast, which is a good thing. People are, even after a year like this, you kind of worry about, well, hey, geez, are people, do they second guess that? Because, if you're not as frequent a player, maybe you didn't feel like you got your money's worth this year. So they tend to, maybe not have interest in purchasing a membership. But so far, we haven't seen that. They've been asking since July when they can renew. So that's a good thing. So where it can be certainly perceived as negative, I still think it's been a very positive golf season. So any questions on anything related to something that isn't a honeybee? Okay.
Got a bunch of tickets with here.
I understand that. So I'll kind of just give a broad overview of how it's going, and you're welcome to ask questions. It has been an adventure for sure. I have learned a lot. I attended a full day school with Peter Cowan in Hamden, the Bee Whisperer. He's phenomenal. His knowledge is just off the charts good. It has been, as it's been a trying year for playing golf and grass, it has been a trying year for keeping beehives going. There's a lot of things that you don't think of that, they'll leave the hive, or you lose a queen and you have to put a new queen in. And I would say it's probably 90% more than what I thought it was going to be, for sure. Which could be some naivety on my part, but it's a pretty constant process taking care of them. But it's for me, it's a kind of a little escape. They're tucked in a little corner on the golf course, and I get to put my suit on, go down there and tend to them. And it's extremely fascinating. It's been very well received. I'm sure some of you have seen. I've done a couple videos. I'd like to do more, but to be quite honest with you, it's a bit tricky when you're covered in head to toe and everything is a touch screen. I've kind of had some workarounds. I bought my wife a bee suit so she can do some filming here and there, but that gets a little bit tricky. But we had some nice spots from local media that came in and covered it, and it's really gotten some good feedback for the golf course. But the membership is certainly, they see me every 3 or 4 days in my bee suit when I'm down there. Or the regular players, they probably wonder, what's this dude doing with a white suit driving across the golf course? But it's been a lot of fun, and it's been a lot of benefit to the community. I think just the exposure, and we happen to time it up just where around the corner there's this big, beautiful bee mural, and I can attest to that because I look at it almost every day. It is spot on. That's exactly what I'm looking at when I open up those colonies. So I just think it's a good thing for the golf course is I believe our recent success in the last decade or so has been around creating community and a culture. And when you look into a beehive, that is exactly what it is. It's the hive first and the individual kind of last. And I think that's a good example for our city, and it certainly is for our golf course too. So the honeybees are a little bit more than just creating some sweet, tasty treats. So first of all, any questions that you have?
What does happen the honey.
That was my question too.
So, right, so, we'll harvest a reasonable amount of honey. In their first year, they need about 100 pounds of honey in each hive to go through the winter. So, whereas we're basically starting with what's called a nuke, which was 4 frames of bees that have partial brood, a queen, worker bees and some drones. And that's literally your nucleus, and you start the hive and it builds out from that. They build their own everything. So every box, which is called a super, has frames in it, and they're basically just like a plastic foundation. The bees need to build comb. I now know where busy as a bee comes from. They are busy. So the hive is kind of naked, if you would, in its first year, until they can build out comb to where the queen will lay eggs. They'll make their brood. When the brood hatches, then they'll use that same comb to store resources, pollen, honey, that sort of nature. So in the first year, that hive's really just getting established. So chances are not good that we'll take any honey. Most beekeepers would have taken honey sometime maybe around July. And then they have the rest of the summer. They may even get another September honey harvest. So whereas we have our two boxes, and there's a smaller box on the top called a honey super. They actually just started building into that and storing honey. So there's a chance we may get a little bit out of that, but in the future, I can tell you that's the most common question I get. When can I get some Honey Pro? When can I get some Honey Pro? We'll have to decide how to address that. The bees aren't free. They eat a lot of sugar. So if you ever see me at BJ's or Sam's Club, I'm not baking cakes. We're feeding the bees because we buy it by the hundreds of pounds. So I assume that at some point, either maybe that'll be something that I have some ideas on what we can do with the proceeds from the honey, some of it to buy some sugar, but I think when we get to that point, maybe over the winter, that'll be a nice project to discuss with y'all and see what you guys have.
Is there gonna be any like rebranding or co-branding so people could buy like golf course merchandise with the bee on it instead of the bird on it? Because I've had many people ask me about that and I think it would sell.
Maybe a couple, yeah.
Birds and bees.
Yeah, or birds and bees.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is.
That'd be great. Huh?
So, I hadn't really thought of it past some products like, there'll be wax, things of that where we can make lip balms and different things out of. So, I would see it as kind of some sort of a t-shirt line.
Yeah, I would love that.
I have a kind of we have this little rascal here, the bluebird, which I was on a call with a golf pro before I got here, and I said, I got to go talk about my bees. And he says, the bees are great. He says, but what about the birds? What about your birds? I said, we don't worry. The bird's still the thing. And we have a lot of bluebirds this year, by the way. They're everywhere, which is great. But in my mind, I kind of thought, like, how do we play the two together? And the Bluebird Honey Company came to mind. So I'm going to work with a friend of mine who's really good graphics wise, and how can we tie the two together? Maybe t-shirts, things of that nature might be kind of cool. So I'm just at this point, I'm trying to prep them for winter and get them through the winter because that is a task.
You sound like you learned a whole lot over this.
Yeah, really, I have. Some of it has been, a crash course, like, oh, what do I do now? Because the reality is right now there's about 60,000 bees down there in 2 colonies. That's a lot of bees. But they're pretty self-sufficient, but you do have to do a lot of care for them. You have to watch for mites. Mites can wipe out a colony. So there's luckily I have a couple of friends who have colonies as well. And Peter's been great. If I call, he answers, or if he can't answer, he calls me back. Fortunately, there's a lot of online resources. So I hope to take kind of the foundation that I've learned this summer and in the winter season, be able to kind of, tighten things up a little bit and learn from some of our mistakes and stuff that worked and go from there.
I can imagine it's a hard summer to have even started because I can assume that with bees, a humid summer is not easy, where.
Yeah, so what I've been told is this, if you could pick a year in like the last 50 to start bees,
This is
this is
not the
the worst one you could have done.
Good job.
Which is perfect for me, you know, that's a challenge, so that's great, we're always up for a little chaos at Bangor Muni. So, yeah, that has been challenging, you know, there's certain, obviously we had the rain, they don't like that, so what happens is they're, you know, if you kind of picture having all of your family over for Thanksgiving dinner, and the you know, now the roads are closed for 5 days and you're stuck in, eventually somebody's gonna say, I gotta get out of here. Well, the bees did that a lot in a lot of places. Fortunately, not our colonies, but they're cooped up inside because they couldn't leave. And they kind of, geez, we don't have enough space here, and half of them swarm. So there's been a lot of swarms this summer, and when that happens, they take the queen with them. And they're basically just going to try and find another place to live, which is not very easy. And a lot of times, if somebody doesn't collect those swarms, they'll perish. So there was a lot of that, and then you had the heat, which was very challenging with the humidity. High moisture levels in the hives, not necessarily good, really tough on the beekeeper.
Mhm.
Bees are kind of a little lazy at one point. They don't like cold. They won't fly when it's cold. And in the morning, you know, they're not going to really go out until it warms up. Well, when you're the beekeeper in a bee suit, you don't want to be out there at 10 o'clock when it's 90 degrees. So you're out there at 6:30 in the morning. Well, guess what? Every bee is in that colony at that point in time. So you're battling a little bit of that. And believe me, they will tell you when they do not want you in there. They're very interesting in that capacity.
You're gonna write a book after this.
You know, it is definitely one of the more interesting undertakings I've been, you know, I've been in this industry for 30 years, which is not that long, but I'm only 47. So it's, you know, when you have the ability to enter into something new like this on your property, it's of high personal value too, to be honest with you. So it's really cool that I work for a facility that is on board with doing this type of thing, because there's a lot of misconceptions. You know, people think that it's going to be dangerous, and that, oh my goodness, it's going to be bees everywhere. They are everywhere. Trust me, they're everywhere, but they're not. They're looking to survive. They're not looking to bother you. They're honeybees. They're not wasps or hornets. That's a different ball game. Okay, so you know, it's actually, you can get really quite close and not be. They won't even bother you. So it's really a cool thing for me to be able to do, and I hope
they don't want to sting you, because if they do, then
yeah,
they die.
Correct, they do. Yeah, honeybees do die if they sting you. They're if you look at a close up of their stinger and a hypodermic needle, the hypodermic needle looks like a worn pencil compared to their stinger, and it's barbed. So when they do sting you, yes, I have been stung, and they fly off, the stinger stays in and pulls them apart a little bit. So it's yeah, they really don't.
I learned that this summer.
Every time I've been stung, I've kind of had it coming a little bit. Either I've leaned against the hive and kind of squished a bee and it's got me, or maybe I was in there when I shouldn't have been and there was a little too much activity. But unfortunately, sometimes in my world, I have a set amount of time that, okay, I need to, this is my window today, and I have to do it regardless of what that entails. So, but they're pretty cool.
You do have an EpiPen out there somewhere, right?
No.
Because I've always heard, and I know someone that after you've been stung so many times, you can start to develop an allergy, and you don't know when that happens.
Yeah, I that very well may be true. I can say that be working outdoors and fishing, I've been stung a million times in my life, so I didn't have that anxiety of, you know what I mean, being stung. And I fortunately haven't had the, you know, it's the venom. A lot of times what gives bee stings people problems is when they scratch it and they get bacteria in there, and they think it's the venom. It's not the venom. It's their hands were dirty and they scratched their, you know, the 2 stings they got, and it got some sort of infection. But
The videos are well worth watching.
yeah, thank you.
If you haven't seen them.
Thank you. My hopes are to actually try and negotiate one tomorrow.
You guys should, the city has a YouTube channel and they don't put a whole lot on there.
Mhm.
That would be something for the
Good
city.
idea, yeah.
Yeah.
So Cody about that.
Yeah.
Good idea.
I think he might have put the last one
He
on
did put
there
the last
because
one,
he
yeah.
grabbed it, because I had to create a YouTube channel to get that to.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that stuff, but getting them out in the open sometimes is a little tougher, depending on this, what outlet you're using, so.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Rob, how did you pick the site? Was there?
How did I pick the site?
Yeah, is there a
Well,
consideration to have in terms of where the?
yeah, absolutely. You know, they don't love wind. So the site we picked has, is pretty sheltered during the summer. That site also has a lot of deciduous trees. So in the winter, the leaves will die when they're cooped in their hive and insulated. The leaves will obviously fall off the trees and they'll get some decent sun to help warm them up. It's also an area that is out of the main traffic flow. You'd have to go out of your way to get near them. Most people don't know where they are, and there's good reason for that. So that's kind of the gist of it. Was a good safe spot, and B, it was yeah, I know. B, it was a good location for them for what they need for conditions. And it also is near some a heavily naturalized area. So there's some good resources that are right around the corner for them as well. Which does, if anybody had came out that's passed now, and I don't know that this is the case, but we had an inordinate amount of Queen Anne's lace in some of our fescue areas that we've never seen as much as this year. So I don't know if it's the bees doing their thing or, but it's just coincidence, but that was the case for sure.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank
You're welcome.
I think there's other people on, right?
No.
No.
I thought it was earlier.
No.
Okay.
Never
His name Courtney O'Donnell and
other business. Does anybody have anything else they want to mention?
I just wanted to mention that I looked at the website and saw the new adult programs, and I thought that they look great.
Yeah, thank you.
thanks. Thank you.
And I'm presuming next month we'll have a nice update on fall activities.
Sure. Absolutely can do that.
When do we want to meet again? Same second Thursday?
What's next month?
October, is that what it is, the 12th?
That good for everyone?
I might have travel basketball tryouts that night, but I can that would be fine.
It's up to you all.
Yeah, we have a game, but I'm only one person, so don't.
I won't be
schedule for me.
What's,
Want to wait until the 19th?
So,
yeah, that's fine with us, whatever you, yeah.
The 19th.
I'm out for that last half of October.
Oh,
I could make it.
19th.
it's up to you all.
Sounds like the 19th looks best.
You know what? I might be doing it the 4th now. It was the 12th and the 4th. So if you wanted to do the 12th, I'm gonna try to get travel on the 4th.
You had a game,
Yes, but that's
so the 19th,
where is it? Home. But it's at, on the 19th? No, I don't have it.
no game on the 19th. We can do the 19th, that'll work.
So you're not available either of those. Okay. Why don't we do the 19th then?
But it's up to you all, yeah, we can do that.
19th at
Thank you.
5:15.
I'll be in Greece.
You want to zoom in?
Sure.
Good for you, that's awesome.
I'm starting in Turkey and then I'm going.
Very cool.
If nobody has anything else, we're adjourned.
Oh,
Or-
I do have something
Oh,
else.
okay.
Some families who live over by Williams Park are wondering when that, is that what it's called? Williams Park? Wondering when that playground equipment will be updated. Because according to them, that's like the one that hasn't been.
So it's interesting you ask, because we've come full circle again. So, if it's not this spring, it'll be included in the fiscal year 24-25 replacement plan.
Because according to them, and we played there the other day, but I didn't go look at it. Lots of broken elements, missing elements,
I'll take a look at
things
that.
like that.
We can fix that.
Things that are like, you know, they have maybe one of those rope structure things
Yeah.
that's fraying, and a neighbor came over with some electrical tape and fixed it because
Oh,
it wasn't getting attention, and it's, you know, sharp and things like that.
So we can fix those kinds of things. If there are things like that, put it in our Q alert, the city's Q alert, and now that we have the park ranger, he'll make more frequent stops at places like that. To answer your first question, that was one of the first structures we did back in 08, 09. So it's entering into that 15 to 20-year cycle already. I say already, it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but clearly it has. So we'll start to make that rounds again, and Talbot and Williams were the first two that we did.
Which one's Talbot?
Second Street.
Okay, so that one hasn't been rebuilt either.
Not recently, no. We did a whole cycle of them each year to get all of the structures replaced. So we'll start that process again.
Okay.
so we'll go fix
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said like there's a climbing wall and a lot of those pieces are gone, and so it's not really as much fun,
We can
that
fix
sort
that.
of thing,
Yeah,
but
we can order more of those things.
Great. yeah, if someone could
Yeah.
just maybe go do a little audit of it, and
Mhm.
they would be really appreciated.
Absolutely.
Perfect, great. Oh, and somebody also said that, once again, me always bringing up the porta potties. There's a porta potty over at Fairmount Park because of the paving that
Mhm.
goes on forever. And there's been a lot of positive comments about having it there, even from people who have to look at it from their homes. And gee, why don't we always have these questions come up again, especially with the small families? So here I am, just once again, putting in a plug for portable bathrooms at the parks so that families don't have to leave when they need to use the toilet.
So we
And I know
try,
that that's not a parks thing, it's a city thing, but it's been well received by the people using the park.
right, no, I'm sure. We tried porta pots, 3-4 years ago. One at Fairmount and one at Broadway. And the one at Fairmount lasted 3 weeks before the vendor took it because of abuse. So, I have been made aware of the one that folks like over there, and next spring, willing to have the conversation again, to try it again for sure.
Great,
It might be possible to give it another go since we've got a park ranger now.
Yeah, no,
Right.
absolutely, absolutely. So no, we're not opposed to, probably too late in this season.
How
but,
many
yeah.
tonight,
I
Yeah,
know.
Been great.
Should write that down. Thank
starting
you.
with Rob's bogged down.
Yeah.
But it's interesting though, if it didn't work the first time, but now it's
Right.
there under, because of the construction and it's working this time.
Yeah.
It's interesting that.
Yeah,
And was it locked when they're not?
No,
Oh,
no, it's interesting.
No.
When we did this before, it was actually, we did, accessible unit at Fairmount and Broadway. And when Casella would go to service one at Fairmount, they weren't allowed in. Someone was using it for purposes other than was intended.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, maybe the parks are being used more now, or
Probably so, yeah.
who knows?
Yeah,
but
no, we're certainly willing to try
It's
it.
been
Yep.
positive.
Sure.
Mhm.
No, I understand entirely. I
Where-
understand
Where's
entirely.
it located right
It's
now?
actually on the corner by the basketball court, on the Norway
I haven't
side.
even noticed it.
Yeah,
That
it's-
goes to show
Yeah,
you it's not, I know eyesore.
no, I
Haven't
mean,
even
it's
seen it.
because of the, you know, they've been doing the paving on Norway and the curbs and everything on Norway
Right.
and Royal. So you'd think people would be complaining because they don't want to look at it, but it's actually been good.
When we did it before, we located it over on the Royal side by that,
At the backstop.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put it over there.
Mhm. We're doing yoga in that park, starting next Monday. Well,
Oh,
we
cool.
started it this Monday, but it was raining, so we had to have it inside,
figure.
but we're gonna do it
Great.
at Fairmount starting, and it's a drop in too. You can drop in and just join in.
okay.
Thank you.
Adjourn.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you all.
We must be coming into urban syrup. Isn't that what you called it?
Urban sap.
Urban
That's in
sap.
the spring.
Oh, is it spring? I
But I
couldn't
can bring
remember.
you
We're still.
some for honey.
Okay, all right.